Good evening, folks. Adam Wason, Public Works Director for the City of Bloomington. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for October 8th, 2024. It is 5:30 p.m. here in City Council Chambers at 401 North Morton Street in Bloomington, Indiana. On the agenda, there is also a Zoom link, and on the meeting calendar invite for on the government webpage for the City of Bloomington, there is also a Zoom link there with a meeting ID and passcode. Otherwise, if you do attend the meeting via Zoom today and you have any public comment for any of the items, we'll ask that you use the raise hand function or the chat function to let us know that you have a comment, and we will unmute you at that time. But otherwise, I will turn it over to Elizabeth Carone, the Vice President of the Board of Public Works, to run tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I call to order tonight's meeting of the Board of Public Works, October 8th, 2024. We will start with messages from board members. Any messages from board?
None for me.
None for me either. Next, we'll move on to petitions and remonstrances, which is a time for anyone to ask a question or make a statement about something that is not on tonight's agenda. Again, this is your time to make a statement or ask a question about items that are not on tonight's agenda. There is no one in the public here in person.
Public in the room, so we've got no public in the room this evening present in person, and it does not look like we have any comments coming through via Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda tonight includes the approval of minutes of September 24, 2024, Resolution 2024-064, new mobile vendor, Caribbean Tings LLC, Resolution 2024-067, new mobile vendor, Travelin' Tom's Coffee, Resolution 2024-072, renew mobile vendor, Arepa Burger, Resolution 2024-068, holiday market, Resolution 2024-069, Someone Saved My Life, LLC, Angelo Pizzo Film. Resolution 2024-070, surplus to Center for Sustainable Living. Duke Energy request for land and sidewalk closures on West 2nd Street. Approval of the noise permit for nighttime milling and paving for the 3rd Street Maintenance Project for E and B paving, I'm sorry. Approval of the right-of-way extension for lane, sidewalk, and parking closures building associates. Resolution 2024-045, fee waiver for right-of-way permit for improvements not required by municipal code. Outdoor lighting service agreement with Duke for Grandview Hills subdivision, and approval of payroll. Is there anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda tonight?
None for me.
Adam Wason, Public Works Director. I will make note on item number 8 for Duke Energy request. That's a typo. It should say lane and sidewalk closures, not land and sidewalks, so just a note there. And then I know you were going to make a statement about Resolution 2024-069, Elizabeth.
That's right. Just a note that I work for the media school at IU, where Angelo Pizzo is an adjunct faculty member. There's no money being exchanged at all in this item, and there is, the Someone Saved My Life LLC has followed proper procedure that we are considering this request as we would do for anybody else. So just making that clear that there's no conflict of interest.
Thank you.
Any public comment on the consent agenda? Again, if you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand function or chat.
We don't see any.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move approval of the consent agenda for the meeting of October 8th, 2024.
Second. With a motion and a second, I will call the roll. Roach?
Aye.
Carone? Aye. Motion passes. Now we will move along to new business. And first we have Beeline Extension Projects, change orders number 1 and number 2.
Jason Kerr, Engineering. This is again for the Beeline Extension Project. There's change orders number 1 and number 2. The Beeline Extension Project was a multi-use path going from Adams Street up to the multi-use path at 17th Street, linking the two together. The two change orders, first one is removing liquid from an abandoned tank that was found under construction of a storm structure they came across this, and this was taken care of. The amount of that change order was $1,500.49.50. Second change order was addition of 6-inch drain pipe for a low-lying area north or just on the other side of the multi-use path to get it drained underneath, and then from a parking lot inlet to drain underneath the multi-use path as well. That change order was $2,077.20. Brings the grand total of the project to, at this current date, $3,089,850.40. And again, this is a project through Consolidated TIF, the West 17th Street area, and subject to RDC approval.
Any questions from the board?
Just very quickly, is there a anticipated completion date for the project?
I believe the completion date is in November. There may be a section that gets held off, but this time I believe it is through the end of November, if I'm not mistaken.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the public on this item? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I move approval of the Beeline Extension Project change order number 1 and number 2.
Second. With the motion and a second, I will call the roll. Roach?
Aye.
Carone? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the approval of construction engineering contract with Resolution Group, Inc. for the Crosswalk Improvements Phase 2 project.
Good evening, Troy Ayton with City Engineering Department. This project will construct improved pedestrian curb ramps and crosswalks at 4 different locations: 11th and Monroe, 11th and Adams, Kinzer near Parish, and Liberty North on State Road 45. This project has been prioritized for federal funding participation for preliminary engineering construction and construction engineering. Construction is expected in 2025. Resolution Group, Inc. was selected through a request for proposals to perform construction engineering for this project. Compensation for these construction engineering services is set at not to exceed $64,800.
Thank you. Any board questions on this item?
No.
All right, questions from the public? Nope. All right, hearing none, is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the construction engineering contract with Resolution Group, Inc. for Crosswalk Improvements Phase 2 project.
Second, with a motion and a second, I will call the roll. Roach?
Aye.
Carone? Aye. Motion passes. Now we'll go to Morton Street and Walnut Street parking garage repairs and waterproofing 2025 with CE Solutions.
Good evening, Adam Wason, Public Works Director, on behalf of our parking garage manager, Jess Goodman. This is a scope of work for CE Solutions, an engineering consultant firm for us on our parking garages. They will be doing a structural design and construction document preparation phase for waterproofing of the decks at both the Walnut and Morton Street parking garages. They'll come up with all the design plans and prepare all the detailed drawings for the scope of work, and that's for each of the, again, each deck at each of the Walnut and Morton Street parking garages. And they will then manage the actual construction project as well with the contractors, do the pre-bid meetings, all the inspection services, et cetera. This is for a total amount not to exceed $67,900 and is part of our efforts to maintain our parking garages to the best of our abilities.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Adam, just to clarify, what exactly is being waterproofed? Is it the concrete itself?
Parking decks. So
The decks, okay.
yeah. So this is all part. Water infiltration will, deteriorate all the things. So this is a waterproofing project on those decks.
Great, thank you.
We talked a little bit yesterday during the work session about doing this in part to extend the life of the garages. Can you just repeat what Jess talked about yesterday with the typical life of the parking garages, please?
Yeah, basic lifespan for a parking garage is a 50-year lifespan. It's expected that they're about 20, 25 years old each right now, so they're about at a halfway life. We do expect that this waterproofing project should take them to, that 45, 50-year period, but overall, just maintenance projects at all of our garages are going to be a priority to get that maximum useful life out of each of them.
Thank you. We'll move along to questions from the public. Again, if there are any questions on Zoom, you can use the raise hand function or chat.
No questions.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the Morton Street and Walnut Street parking garage repairs and waterproofing 2025 with CE Solutions.
Second, with a motion and a second, I'll call the roll. Roach?
Aye.
Caron, aye. Motion passes. Next is Hopewell East change order package number 4 with Milestone.
Hello, Roy Ayton again, City Engineering. This project was awarded Milestone Contractors, LLC, at the June 21st, 2023 meeting of the board in the amount of $13,373,284.90. The board has approved prior change orders in the amount of $322,206.20 for a current authorized contract amount of $13,695,491.10. This package of change orders include the following change orders totaling an addition of $221,697.91 to the contract for a final contract amount of $13,917,189.01. Funding for the change orders will be a combination of, from the RDC, will cover $162,332.93. That was approved last night at the RDC meeting. Their Parks and Recreation will cover $44,744.98. And the City of Bloomington Utilities will cover $14,620. Also, with the combination of the 13 change orders, 18 days will be added to the contract completion time for a final completion date of November 22nd, 2024. I'll move through the change orders are in the packet. I'll move through a few of them. There's 13 of them all total. Change order 11's for adjustment of some pipe quantities at $19,485. Change order 22 is for some additional grading on the site that's required, $41,009.98. Change order 23 is for some revised casting types for storm sewer at $4,615.04. Change order 24 is for some topsoil to be added to the Madison Street that's been constructed at $5,817. Change order 25 is for planned grade discrepancies. That was some curb that had to be removed, and that's at $1,500. Change order 26 is for additional bollards at $5,175.08. Change order 27 is for some tree grates. This is the one that's being paid for the Parks Department at $44,744.98. Change order 28 is for some communication cables that will, for our wireless access points and cameras in the park. That'll be $12,031.27. Change order 29 is for some limestone block caulking at $1,672.10. Change order 30 is for some HMA, some asphalt patching. This is the one that will be paid for by the City of Bloomington Utilities, and that is in the amount of $14,620. Change order 31 will be it's a scope change for the project, so this one I'll touch on a little bit. This is a part of an effort to activate the site between the time that we finish the park and then until the area is developed. Through the Parks Department, they wanted to install some pickleball courts in the area. So this change order here will do the grading and lay down an asphalt surface for the pickleball courts, and that's at $22,423.30. Change order 32 is for some topsoil to be added to the site so that we can get them green. And that's at $37,604.16. And the last one, thanks for your patience, change order 33, is for some concrete curb along Rogers Street. And that was for 413 South Rogers, that lot. We took out a driveway and added some curb, and that's at $11,000.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Just real quickly, Roy, with the activation of the lots with the topsoil, stabilizing all that, I didn't hear you mention seed. Is it safe to assume that was included in the original bids because there would have always needed to be seeded anyway?
Yes, there'd be seed mulching. The quantities weren't quite enough to cover all the lots. There were enough to cover all the infrastructure in there. So even though we have the addition of the pickleball court, that seeding is going to be used to make sure we green up the rest of the area. But it is included already in the contract.
And then I mentioned this in the work session, and I would encourage the Parks Department to include signage on the pickleball courts to inform future pickleball participants that court does not stay there forever, that eventually will go away. Because I know people get very
Noted, and I'll pass that along to the Parks Department for sure.
great. Thank you.
All right, any questions from the public on this item? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll move approval of Hopewell East change order package number 4 with Milestone.
Second, with a motion and a second, I'll call the roll. Roach?
Aye.
Carone, aye. Motion passes. Next is sidewalk trip hazards elimination contract service agreement with Precision Concrete, addendum number 2.
Good evening again, Adam Wason, Public Works Director, on behalf of Joe Van Dievender and Dana Stevens down at the Street Division. We've already approved a contract back in February for not to exceed of, up until this point, we've done a not to exceed of $195,000 with Precision Concrete for sidewalk saw cutting and grinding. This is the most economical way for sidewalk trip hazards to be removed. And so that first contract of $195,000, first with an addendum, was done earlier this year. We're asking for an additional addendum of $200,000 for a total not to exceed of $395,000. We have one-time dollars in our 2024 budget, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in the next resolution, our sidewalk improvement plan for the year. But we had dollars that were solely dedicated to sidewalk improvements in our 2024 budget that were from what we called the former Community Revitalization and Enhancement District, as well as ARPA funds. I can't remember off the top of my head what ARPA stood for exactly, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Plan Act. So those additional one-time dollars, we've been strategizing since the beginning of the year how to best utilize those for sidewalk improvements throughout the community. And so of that, we're going to ask for a $200,000 additional addendum to this contract for a total not to exceed of $395,000. It's a lot there, so happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board? None for me. I just have a question. The figure of 2,520 sidewalk trip hazards, do you have an approximate percentage of how many that covers in the
Whole city? Not at this time, but later after, well, it'll probably come first quarter next year, we'll have and I'll talk about this a little bit more in my next presentation, but we're doing a sidewalk inspection contract this year. We've done these in the past where they use the video footage from the roadway to try to rate our sidewalks in a poor, fair, good manner. We're doing a much more accurate and intricate analysis this time around, where they'll actually drive a UTV or ATV on the sidewalks and use the LiDAR technology to get the visual to really give us a 1 to 100 ranking on all of our sidewalk segments, similar to the pavement condition indexing that we do 1 to 100 ratings on. So, so no, we don't have a general idea of the exact number of trip hazards, but their contract specifies, I think it's 1.5 inches or 2 inches of heave in a sidewalk can be repaired through this grinding. And again, most economical way that we can remove those trip hazards. The moment you have to tear out the sidewalk panel, your cost doubles, triples, quadruples.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the public on this item? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I move approval of sidewalk trip hazards elimination contract service agreement with Precision Concrete, addendum number 2.
Second, with a motion and a second, I will call the roll. Roach?
Aye.
Carone, aye. Motion passes. Now we'll move to Resolution 2024-071, Sidewalk Improvement Plan 2024.
All right, again, Adam Wason, Public Works Director for the City of Bloomington. All good? Okay. In coordination with Joe Van Devender, our Director of Street Operations, Dana Stevens, our Asset Clerk and Emergency Grants Coordinator down there, and Tony Carroll, our new to 2024 Sidewalk Supervisor for the Street Division. We, as a department and as a city as a whole, are continuing our focus on sidewalk improvements generally. This is something we've been doing for many years, but with the new administration and new staff as a sidewalk supervisor at the street division, we're really trying to provide information out to you as the Board of Public Works and to the public on how we make our decisions on where we invest our limited resources for sidewalk investments. We are the sidewalk inspection program I previously spoke about, where we had our fair, good, and poor rating system. That was first ever attempt for us to try to categorize the rankings of our sidewalks citywide. So we have, through that and through all of our internal conversations, this sidewalk improvement plan puts to paper a lot of the decision-making we've undergone on where and how we make these investments. So we work with the overall goal of improving the safety and mobility of the entire network throughout the city. We maintain a lot of this information through our GIS and asset management systems. And again, we'll be doing a updated inspection program here at the end of this year and into the beginning of 2025. Overall, right now, we've got just over and these totals won't line up with the number I'm about to say, but about $1.5 million this year in investments that we're going to be able to make in sidewalks across the board citywide. That overall figure does include equipment costs at the street division, approximate equipment costs, approximate fuel costs, labor costs, et cetera, that are internal to our operations. But what we're also listing here in the staff report are all the outside services that we use for sidewalk improvements. So we just talked about the saw cutting and the Precision Concrete contract, where $395,000 in 2024's budget will provide saw cutting solutions to remove the sidewalk trip hazards on walkways. We focused on St. James Woods neighborhood, the West Point neighborhood, Peppergrass to the south with Sherwood Oaks, and then another large neighborhood out on the east side, Gentry Honors. Previous years, we've done a lot with the sidewalk grinding project right around the downtown and on the near west side. We've now changed a little geographic focus there for 2024. We've got another approximately $65,000 that we're doing with internal crews for ADA ramp installation. So anytime we're going to mill, so take old road surface off the roadway and put back new asphalt, anytime we undergo the milling, we're required to update any of our ramps along those routes along those construction areas to the current ADA standards. So ADA standards change over time. It used to be that the curb ramps used to just have concrete impressions with lines in them. Now there's more of what I call the Lego blocks that really provide more, what are those called? Detectable warning surfaces, much more eloquent than Lego block design. So anytime that we're milling and then repaving, we're required by federal law to upgrade those ADA ramps. So we're doing that on out in Gentry, on Southampton, on 5th Street, Stonegate, Spicewood 2, Hyde Park, McCartney Lane, and these are all listed in the staff report. And we very much try to prioritize our paving in a quadrant base so that we're paving within each quadrant every year, not focusing on any geographic area specifically. And so we've done those ADA ramp improvements along all of our paving projects. We do a sidewalk repair contract that you all approved. This year it was with Groomer Concrete, and that contractor provides repair and replacement services for sidewalk and ADA ramps. We focus those efforts on tree root damaged sidewalks, where the trees that are damaging the sidewalk are owned by the city. So again, we did this out on John Hinkle Place, St. James Wood, Rolling Oak Drive, South Ballantyne, West Dodds, East Bennington, South Alcott Boulevard, Coriander Court, East Wiley, and South Ramsey Drive. All locations geographically dispersed for the most part, and again, that's focused on the tree root damaged sidewalks where the tree is owned by the city. We also have $100,000 where we're working with our lower income residents on a sidewalk participation program. In full disclosure and honesty, often the 50-50 isn't enough to really get that homeowner, a low-income homeowner or property owner, to be able to afford the sidewalk repairs. We've actually struggled getting those dollars out the door based on the income requirements related to where community development block grant funds can be spent. So when we have an extra balance there, we usually add it to, at the end of the year, the sidewalk repair contract with an addendum or the precision concrete. So you may see some of those dollars be reallocated at the end of the year if we're not successful getting those out. We're really reevaluating that program for future and how we can better serve residents. And it could be that the income requirements change so that based on a person's income, it may be that you're eligible for 90%, not just 50%. But that's something we're reworking for 2025. Additionally, I talked about the sidewalk condition assessment. This is part of a larger contract that we'll come forward with in the next, we're finalizing that contract right now, but that is approximately $150,000 for the sidewalk inspections, where they'll use the ATV or UTV to go over every city sidewalk and do a 1 to 100 rating of all those sections. That's part of a larger contract with our pavement condition index. We also do a sign inventory for retroreflectivity of signs, but that'll be part of a larger contract. Those are 5 areas that we focus our efforts on. I'd be remiss not to note that city code, since what we can tell is the early 70s or so, has always maintained that the maintenance of a sidewalk is the adjacent property owner's responsibility. So whether it's a commercial property, a private residential property, a multifamily property that has a sidewalk in the right-of-way, the adjacent property owners are responsible. And we work to get those improvements through private property owners whenever possible. And I just note there that where the city does take that responsibility is when they're damaged by city street trees. We've got thousands of street trees, and so we recognize that as when it's our tree doing the damage, that falls to us. I know this is a lot of information. We talked about it a little bit at last week, or the last board meeting, just in a staff report, and that this would be coming forward. But we are asking for the board's approval of the sidewalk improvement plan at this point. It's likely we'll come back towards the end of the year if we have any adjustments to this plan and ask for your approval of that. And then in the early parts of 2025, we'll be coming forward with our 2025 sidewalk improvement plan that we'll work through and present to the board as well. That's a lot, and so I'll stop there, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
So feeding off of that last comment, so this plan is for both things that have already happened in 2024 as well as, dollars to be spent for the remainder of 2024, right?
Correct.
And then whatever we might see at the beginning of 2025, the hope is that that will cover the plan for the entire year.
Yes, and then as that plan adjusts, there are certain factors that come about that will adjust that plan throughout the year. And we'll come back and bring those items to the board just for your, so that you're aware of when the plan changes and how it changes. A good example would be on the plan changing. Most of, at this point in time, a lot of the repairs that are initiated are complaint-based. So if we know we have someone with a mobility challenge that has a sidewalk repair need, whether it's a city street tree or sidewalk grinding that could possibly work, that could move up a prioritization over a sidewalk where we don't have someone that's maybe mobility challenged in a neighborhood. It could be that that a project could become a higher priority based on a lot of different factors of, say we've got a sidewalk that is in disrepair, city's responsible for that repair, and a housing development occurred nearby. That might, raise it above. So there are different factors that we're going to take into consideration on when the plan could change, but we'll also try to keep the board up to speed on all of that.
Along those same lines, we talked about this in the work session also, impending road changes and road improvement projects might delay improvements. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We've got, so right now we've got a situation on 4th Street where we know we have an old street tree that is heaving some of the bricks. And we know that needs to be repaired. So we've marked it with yellow paint to try to highlight, so folks don't trip on that. But the repair of that project, or there's a street maintenance project that's underway right now throughout the downtown that's going to address that here within a few weeks or months. And so, to your point, that probably would have risen to a level in a high pedestrian traffic area. It's around Grant and 4th, so Restaurant Row. If that had been brought to our attention in a year where that road project wasn't planned, we would prioritize that repair ahead of others, knowing it's a heavy pedestrian traffic area.
And then one final question about ADA compliance. One thing I don't hear much about when we talk about ADA compliance is cross slope. Mm-hmm. I've noticed in my neighborhood, other neighborhoods I've lived in, there have been sidewalks built with really bad cross slopes. Is that ever something that the city looks at when they're?
If we were building a new sidewalk, it's going to meet those standards of cross slope. Sure. Because those have changed over time with different ADA standards. So absolutely, if it's a new project that we're building, if it's a project that is being, a sidewalk project that's being completed by a private developer, a private resident, that would receive an inspection. So we'd certainly be looking at that to meet current standards.
Can I just ask for a definition of cross slope to be added to the meeting notes, please, for those of us who don't know?
I am not a construction engineer. I know the very basics of what that means. But,
so,
James, go ahead.
I'll take a stab at it. So the running slope is, if you're walking down the sidewalk, it's the elevation you're walking. The cross slope is like this, pitch. And it's important for a wheelchair because if the cross slope is too much, you could flip over.
Sure.
So.
Thank you.
I don't know how we're going to do James's hand
Yeah,
motion
can you get
into the
that-
meeting minutes.
can you
but
take a-
we
take
might
a
put
photo and
picture.
include it? Yeah.
No, we'll also add a definition of cross slope, a true definition, engineering
you.
definition of cross slope into the meeting minutes.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question, Adam, to something you said. I was thinking about a lot of the sidewalks, particularly around the downtown area, that are made of brick rather than concrete. How do those brick sidewalks fit into this sidewalk plan?
So that's a little bit different, actually, and what will be added to the next update to this report is we're currently working on a maintenance contract for Kirkwood in particular. So Kirkwood from Indiana to anymore, I think it goes all the way over to Rogers with brick sidewalks. And those were built by the city as part of streetscape improvement plans. I should have mentioned those fall under our responsibility for repair, knowing that they are the brick. So if a private development goes in, there's a new hotel going in at Washington and Kirkwood right now. As they remove those bricks or do anything for sidewalk improvements around there, they're going to be responsible for putting them back into a ADA compliant state.
And you will expect those to be returned as brick, not as concrete?
Right, yes, at this point, if it's on Kirkwood right there. However, we are moving to a maintenance project that is going to be doing a stamped brick feature instead of actual brick sidewalks. What we've found is that those bricks go missing quite a bit. Well, the ratings on viewership for this meeting won't be so high with the college students, but it's in particularly high around graduation or things where they may be looked at as mementos to take home for their memories of college or whatnot. And it's become a maintenance issue. We replace probably at least a dozen bricks every week right now. And so we're working on a maintenance plan right now that will go out to bid yet this year, that will be added to this sidewalk improvement plan once we have some more information on it, where we'll be doing a stamped concrete replacement of the bricks. We're going to start right near Indiana. If you can think about walking across Sample Gates, across Indiana, you're going to see a couple tree plots there that have heaved the bricks in a bad way. They're near the Carmichael Center as well. So we're working up basically the worst segments of Kirkwood right now. We're working up a maintenance project to put back stamped concrete, and then we'll continue that as we replace sidewalks on Kirkwood.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? All right, any questions from the...
Alex has one more comment she wants to make as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Good evening, Alex Pratt with City Legal. I just wanted to make a comment about this resolution. This will be a resolution that will be considered a discretionary decision by the board, meaning that some sidewalks are being identified for repairs and maintenance and not others. So I would really like to encourage the board to ask any questions they have about the different sections of the staff report, and also be aware that you can ask the sidewalks that are identified to be modified in some way, and also that you can approve or not approve the plan as is suggested at this meeting. So you have a discretionary decision here, so just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
I'll speak for myself. I'll probably give that more attention in 2025 when we're looking at dollars to be spent in the future, but thank you.
I also am comfortable with the areas listed. I know that staff has prioritized these for a reason, so. All right, any last questions or comments about this item?
Just FYI, we have no members of the public left on Zoom either.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of Resolution 2024-071, Sidewalk Improvement Plan 2024.
Second. With the motion and a second, I will call the roll. Roach?
Aye.
Carone? Aye. Motion passes. Now we'll move on to Trueline or AEG extension requests. I will just make note for any public who may or may not be watching that the materials for this item are in a separate packet that is also accessible with the original packet.
Here, Kyle Ball, Engineering. So Trueline Infrastructure Solutions, as you said, formerly AEG, is requesting extensions of 12 previously approved permits that all include lane and sidewalk closures in various permit locations throughout the city to move to January 31st of 2025. This move is an attempt to rein in some of the project's delays so that they, can stave off continuing to bring these for extensions. So with that in mind, they don't expect them to take this entire duration, but they will want to keep those at that time frame to be able to get all of the closeout repairs that are going to be necessary after the work is completed.
Thank you. Questions from the board? I just wonder if there's any update about staff communication with AEG/Trueline in recent weeks since we've last discussed it.
Yeah, so we have several different workflows that we're working on daily. There's a daily touchpoint call that revolves around scheduling. So they're letting us know where they're going to be. They're also maintaining a 2-week schedule that we have access to. So calling out the specific streets that they're going to be on a daily basis, as well as having access to an issue tracking spreadsheet where we're calling out anything that's coming into us or CBU as far as lateral strikes, water or gas strikes. Any of those things are being noted there so that we could track those to resolution. Same file, we're tracking all of the permit statuses, any payments that are going to CBU. So everything is captured in this one document. So it's been a really nice experience to get some of those things in front of everybody's eyes on a daily basis.
Great. Thank you. Any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the Trueline/AEG extension requests.
Second. With a motion and a second, I will call the roll. Roach?
Aye.
Carone? Aye. Motion passes. Now we will move to staff reports and other business.
Just a couple of real brief staff reports. I want to thank the Human Resources Department, the Mayor's Office, and others. We had a really nice employee luncheon today down at Switchyard Park. Real refreshing atmosphere of getting staff together over some food and some shared camaraderie. And just, with that in mind, big thanks, as always, to the public works staff that are out there day in and day out, providing all the public services that we do. So just a big thank you to them and to the HR department for their great work on setting everything up today. It was just really a nice event, and appreciate everyone's involvement there. Second note, wanted to note that we had a real successful Lotus weekend with downtown closures and such. Things went off pretty much without a hitch. We got everything set up on Friday as needed. The weekend went well from a traffic volume perspective. No major issues that we were made aware of. So just big shout out to the Lotus crews and all their volunteers. We got down there Sunday morning and barely a piece of trash needed picked up. It was just tremendous effort by them. And same thing for Pride too from a couple weeks back. They did a great job as well. So Zach Taylor in particular, want to give Zach a big shout out. He was the site coordinator for both Pride and for Lotus Fest. And so that transitioned very, very well. And so thank you, Zachary, Taylor, and all your site coordination crews for Lotus and Pride. And just last one, want to just make a reminder, we're getting into that fall season where leaves begin to fall. We will not be doing the curbside leaf vacuuming. That's been discontinued a few years back here now. So just reminding residents that the free pickup for leaves will occur during the month of November in the brown paper bags, and we'll do that through the sanitation division with curbside bag collection. Encourage everyone to mulch on site whenever possible, but any leaves are not to be raked to the curb for any expected curbside pickup at all. They need to be bagged as part of the yard waste program. So just those 3 things tonight, and so that's all I have.
Thank you. We will move along to approval of claims. Are there any questions from the board on claims?
None for me.
Any questions from the public on claims? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll move approval of claims for, do we use this date or do we use the date of the meeting? Okay, I'll move approval of claims for tonight's meeting of October 8th, 2024 in the amount of $2,895,521.85.
Second, with the motion and a second, I will call the roll. Roach?
Aye.
Carone, aye. Motion passes. And if there's nothing else, I call for adjournment from tonight's meeting. Thank you. Thank you.